together for many years, and you launched several startups, building their name from scratch. You've also worked at major global companies, including now. And I'm just wondering if you could share some of the lessons that you've learned along the way, and how people at startups and also scale-ups and global brands might be able to apply some of those lessons.
You know, there's a great theory here and a great book called Competing Against Luck that was written by Clayton Christensen. He's the author of The Innovator's Dilemma, who describes that most people, most buyers don't actually buy products. They don't wake up with a need for your product. They wake up with a need to solve a job that they're trying to go out and execute. And there's circumstances and issues that they have to solve for. Regardless if you're a large company, a very small one, you always have the ability to tap into a startup mentality. If I look at today at Google, have 13 services. They're all at a different level of maturity phases. They have different competitors. They have different customer needs. And I think what they all have in common is this idea that, you know, we want to win. We want to think 10x, and we don't want to think about limits. And we want to think about what if, you know, what if we could do this? What if this happened in the marketplace? And so a startup is not really a resource thing. It's not, it's really about how you can use imagination to get to places you couldn't, you know, imagine to get before, right? And so I would say find ways to create an environment in which your people can use imagination to unlock problems that couldn't be unlocked before. And so some of the tactics that I use is not postmortems, but pre-mortems. So really tap into the imagination of your team. We're going to do this. What could go wrong? What could go right? When it goes wrong, what do we do? How do, either we react or maybe we eliminate the possibility of this thing to go wrong.
Can you share some examples of data-driven marketing campaigns that you've done over the years?
I've got lots of examples for you. I mean, and many of them you've been part of, so they'll sound familiar. The first example I think I remember being very impactful was when we launched at scale. We had a marketing database of 0, right? We had nothing in our marketing database, and I started to think about, okay, how do I build essentially this database? How do I identify prospects? And again, going back to this concept of what is the problem that people are trying to solve right now in the market? And at the time, it was about the Hadoop maturity. Everybody's talking about this technology, but I don't know where the market is at. And is it worth for me as a data leader to take a risk in this new technology? Because if nobody's doing it, maybe I shouldn't be doing it either. And so we created this Hadoop maturity survey, and we partnered with the industry leaders in that space. At the time, it was Hortonworks, Mapr, and Cloudera. We offered that to these vendors who, by the way, were competing with each other, but they wanted to have the answer to that survey. And so they emailed their prospects with the questions. We got the answers. We were guarding the answers from the specific providers. So Hortonworks answers would go to Hortonworks, Cloudera's answers would go to Cloudera. But we built our entire database across all these vendors, which created this amazing situation where now we became an important voice in the market. And how do we do it in a way that is creating information that's highly needed by the community, and also, frankly, position ourselves at the center of this ecosystem? We were the Switzerland of that market, and that's why we were highly credible. So we became an important voice, probably the voice in the Hadoop maturity market at that time. Creating that survey cost me $10. Right.
And
so
it was true thought leadership, so much so. I remember we did it 3 years in a row, each time with different questions and different focus. And after the initial round of media coverage, the Wall Street Journal came inbound to ask if they could quote the survey, because no one else out there had the information. That survey was the only source of information at the time that answered those particular questions. So it's really true thought leadership.
The other one, I just give you a large company example that really has worked really well, is creating a platform for your customers to exchange ideas. So at Google, we created this program called Data Journeys, which are bi-weekly videos and interviews of customers that are sharing their journey. And it's absolutely not scripted. So, which is, you're breaking all the rules of marketing here, right? Because people are thinking, oh my gosh, you need to make sure the customer is on brand and that they're delivering this message. But I'm not in marketing, right? I'm in the business of helping my customers learn from each other. Because what is it that I'm trying to do? I'm trying to get them to see that they're not alone. I'm trying to get them to see that there's other people that are succeeding that they can learn from, and they don't have to go through me. I'm not interested in being the broker of information to success. I'm interested in creating a platform for customers to succeed at scale. And the best way that I can do that is turn on the camera and say, Bob, Michael, tell me, how did you start? What were your use cases? What did you learn? What works, what doesn't? Completely unscripted.
Do you think that it's important for executives to build a personal brand, and why or why not?
Absolutely. I mean, particularly today, right? The way that customers educate themselves and the way that they decide is completely different than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, right? They have access to a lot of information, they're a lot more sophisticated. They don't want to talk to salespeople and marketing people. And, you want to connect with the why of these customers. And so the one thing that hasn't changed is the way people buy is they buy from people, and so they want to understand who is it that they're buying from. You can of course talk to them about your products, and you can talk to them about how they should use your products and so forth. But I think every executive wants to understand the why you started the company in the first place, and they want to connect with what I call, identity differentiation. Particularly if you're a founder that also built something for themselves. So that's the first factor, is connecting with the why. And then the second factor on this identity differentiation is you want to understand what is it that your company, what is it that you stand for? What's the word that you stand for? When I was at AtScale, one of the key words that we decided to stand for is, if you were in the business intelligence market and you heard Hadoop, we wanted people to understand, okay, this is a company that solves the Hadoop issues. At the time, it was a very important topic for executives to solve for. And so identifying your brand, your why, and also the word that you stand for is very effective.
Shifting gears, do you have any tips for how startups can best work with their boards?
I'd say there's three things that I've learned boards don't like, just like any person, I'd say. The first thing is boards don't like surprises, and boards want to be used. And so let me give you a few examples. The first thing that I've learned from the CEOs, the great CEOs I've worked with, is they prepare their boards before the board meeting. You call them, you tell them, here's what we're seeing. Here's how I'm going to talk to other board members about it. Does that make sense? Am I missing something? Why is that? Because the board meeting is not you reporting to your boards. It's a working session where you're sharing what you're seeing, you're sharing your intentions, and you try to use the board to help you solve those problems. Now, it's difficult to do it, and if you have a 2-hour board meeting every 4 weeks or anything like that, it's very difficult to solve all the problems. But that's why you have to be intentional, and that's why you work with your board members before the board meeting, so you can figure out what are the topics and what is it that really matters. The second thing is, your board members are very smart. They are where they are. It's not a mistake. And so what that means is, don't treat them like you're telling them a story and like, oh, let me tell you about this partnership that we did. I'm really excited about it. Even if you know that that partnership is not really anything that's going to move the needle for your company. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is, you want to use them and you want to be smart about who on the board you're using for what, right? So boards are going to be composed of many types of personalities, many types of experiences, and that's what makes it exciting. Um, for instance, if you've got operational problems, focus on spending time with people that have been operators before, and not every board member has. Some board members have been career board members, and they've seen other boards and other companies scale, and they're very smart, and you can kind of pick up the patterns, and they can help you on the strategy. But then on the operations, identify, like for instance, my board members, there are people that started from nothing, sold their companies $3 billion. So that's an amazing, journey they went through. As I'm going through the multiple stages of my company, I want to work with that board member. And so don't treat them all equally as you use them. Treat them use them in the area where they're probably the best in the world. And that explains why they're a board member today. So don't surprise them, don't BS them, and use them, but use them with intention.
Well, this was great. Thanks so much, Bruno. This was awesome.